We're recording. So here we are in the Temple Mount, Gary. Can you believe it?
Am I in?
Yep.
Yeah, this is a 36-acre flat area that the Jews call Temple Mount, though it's under Muslim control for the last 1,300 years, except for the Crusader years. They call it Al-Haram al-Sharif, which means noble sanctuary.
It's 80 football fields.
Well, you would think that you would do a sports illustration for that, Scott. Of course you would. One thing about the Temple Mount, as far as Jews are concerned,
Let's look at this first. What is this, Gary?
this would be the entrance to the southern mosque. This is actually the third most sacred spot for Muslims behind both Mecca and Medina, which are both in Saudi Arabia. This is their third holiest spot.
In the name?
The Al-Aqsa Mosque. It was built in, if I have my year right, 711. At least that was when it was begun. It's not quite as old as the Dome of the Rock, which we're going to see shortly.
So we've seen the most modern mosque, which is underground over there.
Yes.
And now this is the original mosque for worship that was built in the early 700s.
Early 700s.
Yeah. And the Dome of the Rock was
The late 600s.
like 689, I think.
Yeah, late
something
600s.
like that. And guess what?
Oh, look at that.
There it is.
So, this is the Dome of the Rock. It sits over a section of the Temple Mount that is believed to be Mount Moriah. Now, for those of you who may be familiar with, Mount Moriah is the location believed to be where Abraham was asked to sacrifice his son Isaac.
The stone, the top of the mountain, is actually inside that building.
If we were able to go into the Dome of the Rock, which we are not as non-Muslims, you would be able to see in the center they left open the top portion of what we know as Mount Moriah. For Muslims, they believe it's the location where Muhammad had his night flight, or I'm not quite sure what they call it, entering heaven. And so that's what makes it sacred and holy to them. Now these are cleansing fountains here. Before any Muslim enters into a mosque, they have to become ritually clean. So they would seat on these stone chairs, I guess, and turn on the water. They'll clean themselves up before they can go in. Their feet, particularly their feet.
See the seats? All the seats all the way around. When they get thousands of people up here, it must be a zoo. Trying to get their cleansing done.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's pretty. This is a early Monday morning, so it's pretty quiet. We go back to some Jewish history. Years after Abraham, David bought a piece of land called it was the shifting floor, I guess, of Aruna, and he purchased sifting. Yeah, here we go, sifting, and he purchased it, and his intention was to build a temple on this particular site, the very same location. God prohibited him from doing so, but he put together materials and everything that was needed so his son Solomon could build the first temple on this very site.
Now, that was much smaller than this. It was this was expanded by Herod, so that platform was really tiny in comparison to this. This has been expanded. It's been described as a shoebox filled with dirt.
Yeah.
In the walls. And as you can see,
Yeah.
it is huge. It was not like that when David bought it, nor when the first temple was built. This was expanded and enlarged by Herod into what we see today, and we're only seeing a portion of it. So let's head up towards the temple. I'm sorry, the Dome of the Rock.
The Dome of the Rock.
Where the temple once stood, yes.
Yeah, Herod had great ambitions for this area. So even though it was a lot smaller then, he expanded it. He was big on filling in with dirt, filling in with dirt, filling in with dirt, to expand this platform to the size that it is today, and it remains that way.
C'era una zona riservata solo.
One interesting historical thing I just happened to read last night is in 1967 war, the Six-Day War, the Israelis took the old city, which included the Temple Mount, or the Al-Haram al-Sharif, as the Muslims call it. And the military leader, Moshe Dayan, had actually ceded over to the Muslims the rights to control this Temple Mount, since they had controlled it for so many years prior to that.
That was 1967.
1967.
And they gave over control to the WAF.
Yeah, WAQF, yeah.
And they run the joint, but the Israeli police are on top, keeping order. And as you can see, there's not much going on today.
No, let's go on
Go
up
to
the stairs.
Yeah. He's talking to me. Up the steps. A lot of steps in Jerusalem, Gary.
All right, so
What is this structure over here?
yeah, they have these little side mosques. There's one here. If we pan over to our left, there's no. They all have names. I don't remember what the names are.
That's kind of unimportant. But they're all for localized small worship groups.
Well, and as you're over there, yeah, that's another Islamic tower.
The call to prayer is made from those towers.
Correct.
Now here, just to remind people, this is not a mosque.
That is correct.
It is a place of remembrance. What happened here? Did you already talk about that? Muhammad's ride?
Yes, but go ahead and bring it up.
Muhammad supposedly, according to their tradition, went and took a horse ride from this place to Mecca. And so it's the third holiest place in Islam. Now, I'm not sure why he took that ride. It's called his sort of like Paul Revere's midnight ride for the Muslims. But that supposedly happened from this place. And this remembers that and celebrates it.
This is an 8-sided structure, an octagon. Similar, classic to a lot of these structures. The mosaics on the outside are exquisite. And the dome on the top there, it looks like it's gold covered. Well, golly, it is.
It is, yeah.
But it was not always that way. That was a recent addition to the dome by a wealthy Arab.
A billionaire. I believe, if I remember correctly, it was, wasn't it the King of Jordan?
I think it was King Hussein.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that long ago. It was in the 80s or 90s.
Yeah, it's been, yeah.
It hasn't been that long.
Yeah, I have an old picture of the Temple Mount, as we call it, and the gold dome is not there. The dome is there, but not the gold. It is dead quiet here, man. This is a good time to come.
Let's walk up closer to the walls.
Yeah, we could actually kind of peek inside. We just can't go inside.
Well, if the doors would open.
Oh, yeah, I see they're closed. I couldn't see in the shade.
Now, when I was here in 2000, I believe, Gentiles were welcome to come in. You could enter into these doors. And the funny thing is, according to Islamic tradition, you have to take off your shoes. So there'd be thousands of shoes lined up out here. And at that time, we actually went through these doors and inside, and it's a circular inside.
Yes.
And in that is another fence around Mount Moriah.
Yeah, there's an outer walkway.
Yep.
And then an intersection where you see the mount.
And then there's a set of stairs that goes down to a cave-like structure, and it has a hole that runs up to Mount Moriah. Now, my understanding is when the Jews sacrificed, the blood would run through that hole down into the Kidron Valley and exit the temple platform. And there's also a set of stairs that leads down to the so-called Solomon's stables. And of course, Solomon didn't stable any horses there. That's just what it became
name.
known.
Yeah.
So
Well, there's a few shoes over there in the corner. Just a few.
just a few.
Just a few.
There's some of the shoes. But when it was open to Gentiles,
Oh, yeah.
it was just loaded with shoes. And now you can't get in there. Only Muslims are allowed. So here's the roof line. Beautiful building. You can see the beautiful mosaics if you like Islamic art.
Yeah, let's take a walk around.
All right. Let's go this way. Shade. This is a minaret over here.
Yeah.
And of course, you have the ubiquitous Wi-Fi tower. Here's the structure again.
This is the time of day to come here, which is cool.
Nice and cool.
This place, they have the afternoon opening. I bet you the place is hot as ever.
The Dickens, sure. I guess they're afraid someone's going to break in because we've got iron over all the windows. This, you'll recall, is where the Holy Temple of Israel stood. Temple 1 and Temple 2, and in the future, Temple 3.
Whoa, we need to talk about future temple for this site. Huh? I know.
Oh, maybe we can get a peek in here, Gary. Just a little bit of a glimpse. Can't see much, but you can see.
That will not let you in.
Sure.
You don't look like you don't want to mess with them.
Yeah.
Actually, we're heading north on the Temple Mount. By the way, we should say the Temple Mount, or Al-Haram al-Sharif, is bound on the north side by what was known as the Via Dolorosa, the Way of Suffering. On the east side is which you can't see because the structure's in the way, is the Mount of Olives. On our west is the Western Wall,
That'll be
which
like
for
that.
Jews, that's their holiest site. And then behind us, where we came up from, are the steps that would have led up to the temple.
Yeah. Let's walk out here a little bit. You can see and get an idea just how large this platform is. Again, it was enlarged by Herod, and it's 80 football fields or 36 acres.
36 acres.
And it is impressive. If you think about this was done thousands of years ago. You can hear the bells in the distance from a local church. One of the many, many, many churches in Israel. Now we're on the other side, Gary. And here's the
We are on
building.
the north side of the Dome of the Rock.
Let's zoom in on some of the tiles.
In case you're wondering what that funny looking lines are in some places, that's Arabic script, which I have no idea what it says.
All right. Let's continue our walk.
And I assume it's going to get edited like crazy, so. Again, raw footage. Isn't it interesting when you use words like footage? Doesn't mean anything to people, really.
Worshippers from all over the world. Of course, there's not very many people up here right now.
No, this site is a big deal. It's a big deal for Jews. It's a big deal for Muslims. It's a big deal for Christians. There's an end times scenario that many of us believe that when Jesus Christ returns, he's going to set up his millennial kingdom, and a millennial temple will be built on this very spot. The question is, what happens to the Islamic buildings that are here? And your guess is as good as mine, because we really don't know.
What happens to the Dome of the Rock? If they're going to rebuild a temple in this exact spot, what happens to the Dome of the Rock? Well, that would say to me there has to be a demolition process, doesn't there?
Well, there's been an idea floated around, because this mount is so vast, perhaps the temple will be erected in a location adjacent to the current Islamic buildings.
I know.
I don't buy that.
No, it's because it's got to be on top of
It's
Mount
got to be
Moriah.
there. It's got to be there.
It's got to be in that location.
So it'll be interesting to find out how God puts that together to make that happen during the millennium. There.
So, Gary, this is our trip to the Temple Mount, and it's been quite impressive. It's been illuminating in the fact that you get to not just hear about it, now you visualize the size, this monstrous size of this locale. And the building that's in front of us that we've been looking at, the Dome of the Rock, is huge and impressive. But my understanding is the temple is going to be 3 times as large, the one that's going to be built.
This is not nearly the size of what the temple was. Actually, the Herod's temple was. Neither the Millennial Temple that is yet to come. This is probably about 1/3 of the size of the Herod's temple area.
So what's the difference between the Dome of the Rock and the upcoming temple to you?
Well, it symbolizes 2 different gods. Here we're talking about Allah, and as far as the temple itself, we're talking about Jehovah, Yahweh.
Yeah, and to me this symbolizes the difference between the works of man
Okay.
and the works of God. Now, what does this temple mean to you and to me as Christians, as believers in Jesus Christ?
Yeah, it's definitely we agree with our Jewish brothers that it certainly symbolizes the presence of God, and that's what's vital to the Jewish believers. But they also hold to that Jesus Christ, God lives within us, so we are the temple of God. We are the temple of the Holy Spirit. So that's a huge difference between.
Instead of residing in a building, he resides within us.
Correct.
But in the millennial temple, he's coming back, and Jesus Christ will inhabit the temple.
Yeah,
Mount
the
once
sacrifices
again.
will be all started all over again. It's there's a lot of going on there. We don't have time to talk about all the eschatology that's going on in the end times, but that's just sort of a preview of what's ahead for this particular location, the Temple Mount.
So we send our greetings to you, our hellos, and we trust that this has been informative to you, and we'll see you again soon in our next video.
Shalom.
Gary and Scott say goodbye. Here we are on the other side of the mosque, facing the Mount of Olives, the west side. And we're moving towards it, and you can see the beauty of this place. You have the mount, and it goes down through the valley of Hinnom and up on the other side where Jesus and his disciples spent the evening before his crucifixion, praying and waiting to be arrested. And that's marked by a number of churches, as you can guess. The church in the background there is the Teardrop Church. That's where Jesus wept and asked his Father to take this cup from him. And then you have the beautiful olive trees where he and his disciples would rest. And you can see those in the background with the Russian church. And the Church of All Nations is out there somewhere. I'm not getting an angle on it, but it's out there.
Yeah, it's going to be down below here. You can't see it. I think it looked better framed by the arches.
Yes.
But yeah, the beautiful gate will be down here somewhere. It's closed. And then the Muslim cemetery, which she didn't buy the Islamic eschatology whatsoever. Shelley, she didn't buy it whatsoever.
That they buried the dead there to keep
Oh,
the coming Jewish
and
Messiah
Suleiman
from
closed it
entering.
up to keep,
Jews from entering.
yeah, well, no, the Messiah.
The Messiah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, for For them, the Messiah is the Antichrist, and the Mahdi is their Messiah. For us, the Mahdi is possibly. That's nice. It's like another exit that looks like probably to the Muslim section.
بكره بالمشمش بكره بالمشمش
دقيقتين ونص من عند كارتا على نحن النظام 5 دقائق 13
Another exit. The Iron Gate.
Yeah, that makes sense that underground mosque would be where all those air vents are. There must have been a dozen of them.
See, this is a place of worship here. This faces east.
thing,
Yeah, so you can stand on here and do your ritualistic Islamic prayers, and you know for sure you're facing
East.
East, yes, towards Mecca, the most holy site for Islam. This place is huge. Just
No,
keeps
I'm
going
just-
on and on and
No,
on.
I keep walking, as I'm walking, it's like, my goodness, it keeps going. So when you're up there by the mosques and the Dome of the Rock, that's just a portion.
Small portion of it, yes.
This is all part of it.
Yep. Most people never come down here.
Yeah, there's multiple exits.
Yes.
I just,
They're all going to go into the Muslim quarter.
there's a map that we see.
You get an idea just how big it is. Here's a place to wash up, get your drinks.
like the outer edge, the outer rim.
Mm-hmm. Look how expansive this is. It's amazing just how big this temple platform is. Here's the minaret.
This does not look like an exit.
No, we have to go back. Here's another platform for worshipers.
Yeah.
Why don't we go across and cut down the middle? Across and cut down. Looks like another exit. Morning. This looks like bedrock over here, Gary.
It is indeed.
Yeah. It's the wall built straight on top of bedrock.
Yeah, best place to build it. Don't have to dig a foundation.
Another worship area with a little enclave orientated towards the east.
Just some kind of a name that begins with an M. I can't
Yeah,
remember what it
yeah.
is.
You're getting old.
So we're still on the mount.
Yes.
And look how far the dome looks from
Yes.
us.
Yep.
We're still on the mount.
Yep. Another exit. I don't know if it's used or not, but here's the ubiquitous cats. They're everywhere. Cute little things, if you like cats. Again, look at the size of this. 36 acres, 80 football fields. So you're getting the feel for it as we walk with these platforms for the Muslim visitors to worship at. Today they do allow Jews up here, but they're not allowed to worship at all. No praying, no physical gestures.
Yes, no bobbing up and back. That's for the
No.
Western Wall.
Yep.
Ah, nice clean street.
Yes. I think we can cut back this way, Gary, unless you want to continue. Did you want to walk around the whole?
Well, we got. Do we have time? Are you okay?
It's 8:30.
Yeah, we got an hour before we have to get there. Yeah, let's walk a little more. We're good. So we must be heading east.
Look at the expanse of this, Gary. So imagine this filled on Muslim holy days, filled with worshipers.
Amazing.
There's another entrance or exit. Entrance for Muslims.
Or mission gate.
So these are all out of the Muslim section. There you go. You can see the Jewish soldiers.
I would be lost if we went through there.
Yeah.
I would be.
Just massive. How many laborers would have taken it to fill this place with rock and stone between the four encasement walls? Can you imagine? No heavy equipment. Had to be moved, what, one wheelbarrow at a time. Is this the,
Another minaret.
what are these arches from? I was trying to find the Hulda gates. Haven't been able to find them yet. I know they stick up a little bit. You can identify them. And they had, when the last time I was here, they had portions of wood that supported part of the roof. They suggested it could have been from the temple itself.
And we hard to believe
They-
wood would exist.
It was all petrified. They had dug it up. Ah, here we go.
We'll make a right turn here. I'll be heading back.
Okay. Another gate. More guards.
Yeah, it's way away from where we. I don't know. I found in Muslim areas they don't do anything with grass. They just leave it as dirt.
A junk pile on the Temple Mount. Some kind of a work area. Extra bricks for flooring. Here you can see the road is kind of caving in. Needs some attention. All of the Temple Mount isn't pristine, is it? We're really in places that the tourists don't normally go. Here's some more junk piles that they've somehow dug up. There's the Dome of the Rock. Here's another platform for worship for Muslims. And there you can see a work area, like a junk pile. More stones, columns, probably from some structure that was built here in the previous time. I don't know if it was the second temple or not. Probably not. But you can see all the debris. With all the manpower that they have, you think they might get it cleaned up, but they don't. It's in terrible shape, this part of the Temple Mount. I have to tell you, it's really cool up here, temperature-wise. In the past, I've been up here, it's been in the 90s. Today, it's in the high 70s. There's a pleasant breeze blowing. Look, not even a path to walk on, it's just dirt and stone. Now, this is the platform that the Muslims illegally dug up, and they put a mosque below ground. This is where the dirt came from for the Temple Mount sifting project that Gary and I participated in with Marion and Doug. And once they were finished, they put in these air vents that you'll see so that you can breathe. There's another platform that just isn't used, otherwise there wouldn't be grass growing up out of it. Here we go, orientating you towards the temple, or the Dome of the Rock, excuse me, former temple. There's the El Aqsa Mosque. That is the Mount of Olives directly across from us. I just got whooshed away from where I was going. I was told to leave. Gentlemen. Here's another area to get into the below ground mosque. There's the entrances that you can see. Still working on it. So there's the entrance to it. You can see it's all new, relatively new construction in the last 10, 15 years. Here's the top of it. So they dug down into the Temple Mount, took out all the dirt, put in pillars, put in a ceiling, a floor, and then these huge air vents. Right here, and you can look down into it as well, into these areas. I'm not going to do that. There's the mosque. And so this is a portion of that mosque. It's just underground. More cats. They're everywhere.